time to discuss all those social media names that we all know oh too well. J.R. Gondek is with us, Managing Director of the Lerner Group at Hightower Advisors, and Seema Shah, VP of Insights at Sensor Tower. Thank you both for being with me. Seema Shah, I mean, we talk about Meta and how Mark Zuckerberg continues to gain in his billionaire status. Tell me a little bit about some of the names in social media that, based on your insights and data, seem to be doing extremely well, and why.
Right. So obviously, Instagram is doing really, really well. Its Reels functionality is very attractive to users. It has one of the highest engagement levels of the social media apps other than TikTok. And as we discussed before, short form video is really what is driving engagement across the social media space. And that's what allowed these two apps in particular to really drive engagement and subsequently advertising revenue. So I would highlight those two right off the bat as being probably the top performers in terms of engagement and really attracting suitable advertisers because of the performance of their platform.
Right. JR, what stands out to you these days?
Well, Meta is very attractive as they're best in class at this point. When you look at all the fundamentals, you look at the advertising budgets this year, the election cycle this year, just very optimistic on the outlook. And the execution, the margins that Meta is able to obtain these days are very, very strong. So be very optimistic about the outlook. You know, other social media platforms, dating apps, other areas are just less appealing. But Meta's just best in class and very strong in this environment.
There's a lot banking, JR, on Truth Social and DJT, right? We've already seen a lot of volatility in that stock, and you think it could really have a big swing one way or the other. Could you clarify some of the thoughts that you have?
Well, if you look at Trump Media, I mean, everybody recognizes the name. The fundamentals don't support anything around the valuation. It's all about whether Trump wins the presidency or not. So you could see a very high upside potentially if he were to win, and a very low a low price on the stock if he were to lose. And it's just sort of like a binary option at this point. If he wins, there's upside. If he loses, there's a lot of downside because the revenues, the number of users don't match anywhere near where the valuation is.
Right. In the notes, you said maybe you could even trade below $10 or above $100. I know those were rough numbers, but it does sound like the kind of stock that could swing one way or the other based on his success in the election in the fall. Seema Shah, some of your thoughts on DJT and Reddit?
Yeah, I would concur with what was said because especially with DJT, they only have about 400,000 monthly active users. And I just want to point that out. That's in comparison to over 1 billion for Instagram, over 2 billion for Facebook. So it's really very small. Downloads in 2023 were 2.8 million, which was down from 2022, which was closer to 4.5 million. So we're already seeing a decline in downloads and gaining that new user. And in terms of usage, it pops kind of when he's in the news. So yes, if he wins the election, there would be a pop, but the whole platform really depends on him. And I would just say that advertising, again, remains the key driver of revenue for these types of social media platforms, including Reddit. And for something that is very polarized or publicly in one direction, that might not be as attractive to advertisers as you have a more neutral platform, right? And then I would say for Reddit, again, they're a better position. They have 70 million monthly active users, but again, they have those subreddits, right? Versus a lot of individual user data. So that's a little bit different. And again, they don't have the short form video or a dedicated channel for short form video, which is, again, where users are spending a majority of their time on these apps.
Seema, I know you also said beneficiaries of if TikTok were to be banned, you put that in your notes, but also what do you see as the base case of what happens to TikTok?
Right. Well, I mean, we know that it passed in the House. They're still, working on it in the Senate. But I mean, I'm not sure what will happen. I think it'll be really difficult to get it through the Senate. But if it does, I know TikTok has said that they wouldn't want to sell and, be a part of a non-Chinese company. But losing 10% of their user base if they were gone from the U.S., 20% of their in-app revenue, that would be a huge hit. And I wonder if this did happen in the U.S., what the implications would be for its legality in Western Europe and other places like that. So I think, but from a beneficiary point of view, as we've mentioned, I think Google Shorts and Instagram Reels would certainly get the lion's share of the user time and the advertising dollars.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Pinterest, which year to date is down about 8%. Looking at Snapchat, year to date down about 34%. JR, you don't really love the group. You're not saying you would buy most of this group. Is that right? I mean, which names would you stay away from, or which ones would you buy? Final thought.
Well, I would stay away in general unless TikTok were banned, because I agree. I think Google and Meta would benefit the most. But if they were to be banned, Snapchat and others would be worth a look at those levels. It's just our base case is that it won't get banned, at this point. So would definitely stain toward quality, because the other challenge you have is costs are up. You look at cloud costs. Amazon AWS has raised the prices, which has been great for Amazon stock. It's not as good for margins of some of the weaker players in the industry. So it's another thing to watch for margins on some of the other companies within the industry.
All right. Thank you both so much. J.R. Gondek
Thank
at
you.
Hightower Advisors and Seema Shah, VP of Insights at Sensor Tower. Thank you so much for being with me.